We're living through a moment where the boundaries between online and offline life have largely dissolved, especially for young people. School no longer exists separate from the digital world. Group chats, social media posts, conflicts, rumors, even threats move fluidly between screens and campuses. So when we talk about reclaiming attention, we also have to talk about safety, because attention, belonging, and well-being are all shaped by what students experience online. In my role, I work closely with our director of school safety as we think about both prevention and response, how we educate students and families, and how we act when digital behavior becomes a real-world safety concern. Today, we're unpacking what cyber and social media safety actually mean in the school community and what families should know. So let's get into it. Hey, Cameron, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Chris?
Good. Let's maybe start with just tell us about your role in LBUSD. What do you do and what do you oversee?
Yeah, so I'm the director of the Office of School Safety, and that department is really tasked with the physical safety of our school sites, safety of our students while they're in our care, as well as our staff and our district offices. So anything really relating from how do we handle an unsafe situation at a school site, my team's responding to that, but then also the preparedness side of it on what are we doing to make sure our schools are safe? What procedures do we have for an earthquake or a tsunami or any type of event that could happen at our campus? My job and my team's job is to make sure the schools know what to do when those situations happen.
So when you think about that, I mean, we've talked a lot over the years and worked together on different things and a lot about, there's a lot of the physical side of your work, but when we look at the digital world and we look at what's happening on social media, I know that's an impact. So from your role and your team's work, when we talk about cyber and social media safety in our schools, what do you see are some of the biggest risks we're seeing with students right now?
Yeah, so it's really just that digital world that's becoming more widespread, the easy accessibility of it, especially at our students. We're encouraging them to engage online more from a study standpoint, but then that means more devices. And what are we doing to monitor that? What we see a lot happening through our school sites really focuses on cyberbullying. That's a big topic that comes up. Just how to be safe interacting on social media, the really under the radar kind of communications that happen through online gaming, these different platforms that we encourage students to use because they're very beneficial, but there's a negative side to that as well.
Yeah, it's crazy how many things pop up. I mean, I know we both done presentations all over the district and talking about social media safety, and I feel like I learn something new from the people I'm presenting every time, whether it's parents or kids, like a new app or a new game, like something I didn't know about. And it's overwhelming because I think I do this for a living. Like I'm constantly thinking about social media and all of this work. And sometimes I'm like, wait, you can do what on Roblox? And adults are talking to kids and you find stuff out like that. And it's kind of terrifying. So have you seen, like, what has been the frequency, like, let's say like pre-pandemic to now? Have you seen an uptick? Have you seen us having to divert more resources or attention to this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think really we saw a big spike in 2016, 2017, where all of a sudden just social media exploded beyond where it was. And we started getting a different avenue of apps coming through. So outside of your normal Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, we started moving into, I can't even remember several of them and that's to your point, that's how quickly they change, right? It's as soon as we figure out one, something else has come up and we've moved on to the newest flavor and we're almost starting from scratch each time. But we really saw an increase in how students were utilizing YouTube, and Pinterest is always one I come back to. I use Pinterest all the time for recipes, or hey, I want a new storyboard for a house reconstruction or something like that. And those are all huge benefits, but there's negative side to that. Through Pinterest, you can search and find ways to conceal things in everyday items, hiding them both from school but at home. And so it's that positive use coupled with the potential for misuse that really raises our concerns. And how do we navigate educating our students on using it properly, but then also being aware of, hey, this is a rabbit hole you can go down. And if you find yourself going that route, here's how you come out of it.
Yeah, it's not having the guardrails to me is the most frustrating thing with all of this technology. Because you're totally, I think of like how useful YouTube is. Like I put a roof on this shed in our backyard. I didn't know how to do a roof, but it's 100 ways to do it on there and what supplies. But it was super easy and it worked. And it's like so cool. And when I talk kids or even families, I always say like I'd be hypocritical if I stood there and said like, we shouldn't have technology and it's bad. I mean, my whole job is built on that, but built on purposeful use. And that's what I hear you talking about, like purposeful use of this. It's amazing, right? We talk about equity. We talk about supporting kids and giving them all these opportunities. Having access to information is the greatest thing in the world. But then you brought up YouTube, we just this year, our tech folks just blocked YouTube shorts on the district Wi-Fi because they're completely unregulated and monitored. So it's like, God knows what kids are going to see on there. And that's just one part of a platform, right? And then many of the platforms. So you're so right. It's like that whack-a-mole side of just not having any restrictions. It's like we're all driving around with a seatbelt on, And so when you think about in your role and when you've had to intervene in these situations, right? Or there's been investigations around cyberbullying that have impacted the school site. What are some warning signs that a student might be experiencing cyberbullying or online threats? And I think about this all the time of kids who maybe don't want to tell somebody because they're freaked out. They're dealing with, sextortion or cyberbullying or something. Like, what are warning signs that a kid might be dealing with this that you've seen as this, experienced cyberbullying issues?
Yeah, the biggest one is change in behavior. Like really the signs that are out there aren't different than what I would say is a traditional bullying mindset where an individual is either physically or verbally bullying you in person. That's just shifted to the digital landscape. And so we've often seen students report cyberbullying, and then upon investigation, there starts to show that little pattern, right? Staff have started identifying, oh yeah, the student isn't as engaged at lunch anymore. Or even at home, the parents, well, he used to always play this game and he never wants to play that game anymore. So you see kind of this withdrawal type of symptom, whether that's using their device less, they're not engaging or talking as much as they had previously, or even flat out saying, no, I refuse to do that. I don't want to talk about it, and getting visibly upset at those conversations. Those are all signs that it could be cyberbullying. It could be physically being bullied. It could be an indication of anything. And that's really the point is there's often a lot of gray area. But if you notice something's off with your student, with your grandchild, with anyone in your community, a friend, that's a red flag. And that's something to discuss and bring up. Whether it's cyberbullying or not, it's just a good thing to know. If something seems off, there might be something to it.
And it seems like that's I think the mystique of the digital world sometimes is like behavior is behavior. And so even when you're talking about that idea that like there's going to be a physical manifestation or that's going to showcase, because we deal with investigations where principals will say, hey, can you help us get these malicious accounts taken down? We can't figure out who they are. And, for anyone watching, knowing that does nothing nowadays, the social media companies don't help us when we report it and all that stuff. But you think of the physical investigation, like I was working with a school site who all of a sudden had like 6 malicious accounts pop up in one day. We're reporting them, nothing's happening. And I start going through the list of followers and following, and I start seeing patterns. And then we ended up identifying some students and being able to pull them in and intervene. And it ended up being taken care of very quickly. But in coaching the principal, I remember being like, it's just like doing a physical investigation. It's not any different. Like, I mean, it's different, but you have to rely on those pieces too. This idea that it's a digital world. I submit a form or I take care of it this way, that's going to fix it. And so in the same way you're talking about, like it's interesting, like what's going to manifest in the real world. And I think having a keen eye for that, because it scares me when I think of kids who are dealing with that alone and they're ashamed or they're embarrassed and they don't feel like they can talk to anybody. When I talk to students, when we go out and present, I always say that, like, tell a trusted adult, whether it's a teacher, whether it's your principal, whether it's your parent, whoever it is, because don't carry that burden alone.
Well, it's not even carrying it is, but it's not just carrying the burden alone. It's the accessibility to that bullying. I joke around in my office a lot. Like, I yearn for the days where a bullying post was written on the bathroom stall in a bathroom, right? Because I could go home on Friday never seeing that, and enjoy my weekend and show up Monday. And okay, maybe it becomes something that's aware to me in that moment, but I'm dealing with it Monday. Our students now are seeing these posts at 1 a.m. in the morning, Friday night, and now they're living with that over the weekend. And when we talk about a trusted adult, if that communication avenue is not open outside of the school environment, that student's now living with that post and that mindset over the weekend, which is a scary thought that we're having vulnerable students seeing that 24/7. Our devices are always there. Whether we want them to be or not, that information is always out there. And you mentioned with, reporting in a digital world, oh, I reported that post to Instagram. Those posts are screened through AI. And that AI balances what is this post versus our community agreement. If the AI filter doesn't think that it meets or violates community agreement, it ends there. It's not like I'm looking at it in person to look at this post. If it's flagged by AI, then it goes to someone. But even at that point, I'm looking at it, or it may get filtered to you based off a workflow. I may think something's a violation, you may not. So it's very subjective in that process. And it's becoming more and more difficult to address these issues, even from a reporting standpoint.
Yeah, that's the I feel like we used to be able to report in 24 hours, 48 hours, you got something taken down. And now I'll report stuff that I'm like, this clearly violates your terms. It clearly does. It's minors fighting or something, and it's obvious. And when we get that little message that comes back, oh, this doesn't violate our community agreement. And you're like, I'm looking at it right now, and I think about, Meta came out with the school partners. I don't know if you heard about that a while ago. And I was like, oh, great, we're going to have this access. And so we got on the wait list and we signed up, and now we have the little check. Nothing has changed, And I mean, I'm a little bit hopeful that new law passed. I don't know which assembly bills, but it's a reporting law that passed in January. Have you heard about that one?
I have. I can't think of the name of it, but I've read through a couple of reports on it.
Yeah,
it's
I think
promising.
It's 3216, but it might be it's promising that they're going to have human beings look at it when folks like us report that stuff. So hopefully that'll flush out as the year comes in. So going further with that, when we think of emergencies and threats, so even from cyberbullying, which, I know your work is all around safety. If a post suggests self-harm, violence, a threat to a school, what should students or families do immediately? They come across that. What's your advice?
Yeah, so specifically with threats of violence against the school, even self-harm, anything that's concerning, obviously seeing it and reporting it. So we have the see something, say something reporting system, the anonymous reporting system that we have throughout the district. Make a post, report it to that system. That gets filtered to both your local law enforcement agency, the school gets reported to us. My team investigates that the minute we get it. And that's really what we're looking for is we don't know about it until we know about it. And reporting is the first step, whether that's through that system, calling Long Beach PD, calling Sheriff's Department, Signal Hill, wherever you're living, call that agency and say, I have this, I want to report it. Reporting it to the school site. The combination of reporting and in that moment, you have access to that post. So what we see a lot of times is that it's an anonymous account, meaning there's no name or anything associated with it. It's a private account. So if I were to go on my personal account and try to look up that post, I won't be able to see it unless I'm friends with that particular account. If you're seeing the post, you're friends with them. You have a leg up in that intelligence gathering. Take a screenshot of the post. If for some reason it's deleted, removed, maybe Instagram's proactive and decides to take it down because it's flagged, once it's removed, we lose our ability to investigate. So taking a screenshot, submitting that with your report, that way it's documented, hey, we have this, we have these screenshots, we can move forward with that investigation process. If it's concerning enough, Long Beach PD or any agency that's responding can work through a warrant to try and get additional information to identify where this post is coming from, especially when we're looking at school threats. They have the ability to dig deeper, and they will. The biggest thing is we have to know about it. And reporting it is the best thing that can happen. And we have several avenues that way can be done.
And that's on all the schools' websites, right? Isn't there a link to it?
It's on the bottom of all the schools' websites. It's on the district homepage on the bottom. It's see something, say something is right down on the bottom. And there's most of our students, middle school and high school, have an app that they can utilize. There's a phone number you can call, or you can do it from your computer on your own. So there's multiple different ways of calling that. They take reports 24/7, and depending on what that information is, they will contact the people that need to know about it. As soon as that call is coming in, they're passing on information in real time.
So when you and it's so great, and we have access to that system, and seeing how quickly that comes in, and knowing that I feel like it gives kids that safety in being, even if they're anonymous or however they're going to report it, that they are pushing them like, hey, if you see anything at all, just get it out there, even if it's not credible, but at least we have some move on, because if we know if it is credible, it's disastrous, what could happen. And so when you go out and you've talked to students, or I know you go out to PTAs and talk to families and things like that, or parent groups, what's like your advice when you're talking about issues around threats, even from a behavioral standpoint? So obviously reporting, but just overall, what's from the education piece, what do you communicate?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is just parents want to understand that when they're relaying information over, it's being looked at and it's being vetted, right? It's not just here's a report. And this is for bullying all the way through any type of school threat. Really, anything that the parents are bringing forward, they want to know that it's being looked at. And that's what I try to emphasize and reassure them in those parent meetings is, when you bring something forward, we're looking at it. Not everything's credible, but I would rather go down the route and say, yeah, this wasn't credible, than not know about it.
Yeah.
Same thing with our students is the way that our students have accepted and utilized the reporting system is amazing. And it's a testament to, one, the program itself, but two, the care and concern that our students are expressing. We've intervened in several situations. A lot of it is concerns about self-harm, where concerning behavior comes across, whether it's a post or a message after hours on a weekend, and we get a report at 3:00 in the morning that, hey, my friend is feeling suicidal, or they're expressing these emotions. And we're able to act upon it in those moments and make sure that that student's safe. And if not, then we're getting them the help that they need. And every time a report comes through, we make sure that staff are, if we know who the reporting person is, just give them a kudos and say, thank you for saying something. Because that's the biggest thing is, in order to help, we need to know.
And it's interesting because you think about it, we go back to purposeful use of technology. It's taking the same problem we have also as a benefit, in the sense of they can be on it any time of the day, right? I was thinking of even like a text network or a social media platform is like a house party with no parents there 24 hours a day, right? It's always happening. There's that bad side of it, but then the other side, a student can report something at 3:00 in the morning, and there's going to be an alert, and there's people who are getting that and being able to act on it quickly. It's just such a surreal thing that this access can be so negative, but this access can be a lifeline.
Absolutely. And I think you referenced it in a few of the presentations that you've done, where, we've had the luxury of kind of tag teaming on these presentations, and you look more on the benefit side. Here's how you can use social media as a high school student to help your college acceptance, or make a portfolio of what you do. We've seen student athletes. No longer are we sending out a film tape to, whatever colleges we want to go to. Our students are creating Instagrams and posting highlight videos to those Instagrams as a way to, hey, I'm in college recruitment, follow my Instagram if you want to see more of my film. Great tool, great application of it. And it's more far reaching than making a bunch of CDs and mailing them off. But the flip side of that is, colleges are following up and looking at, hey, what does this person's social media profile or their footprint look like? I'm applying for a job or an internship. Hey, what's their social media? What does that look like? What is their past posting, and does that become a liability for us as a company? So there's this awareness that needs to be had is, yes, a bunch of followers and very socially active is promoting my ability to go to college. But it's also potentially hindering my ability to get hired because I posted something in 8th grade and I didn't really understand the full ramifications. Once it's out there, it's out there. I may delete it from my account, but all it takes is one person to have screenshot that or one person to repost it, and it lives indefinitely.
The permanence is like getting kids to understand that. And it's so fascinating to me in the last few years because we have kids now who they only know the digital world. I mean, they've been born into it, right? We're old enough to remember when that didn't exist, and to the extent it does now. And I was talking to some kids one day, and I was giving the spiel about that, about this horrible story of this kid losing a scholarship because he posted something when he was 16, and then it got screen captured, and then they reposted it and went viral. And as I'm leaving the auditorium, this little 6th grader walks up and he's like, "Wait, you mean the stuff I put online when I'm, 2 years ago? People can find it?" And I mean, he's like pale as a ghost, just panicked. And I'm like, "Yes, most likely, yes, it's somewhere, and you have to be careful." And it was early on in some of the presentations, but it was a huge reminder of like, we have to educate kids on this early and educate families so they're aware. And I think about that, the same time we go out and talk to parents. I mean, there's the experts in the room that have dealt with issues and, with one kid, so they've figured it out for their second kid, and they've dealt with that. And then there's some that are like, "What? I didn't know any of this," and that, like that to me is such a passion of like, it's why, we do things like this podcast and stuff, is like, just so families understand like this. You don't know what your kid's doing online. You need to be talking to them about it, and they need to understand the magnitude of what can happen if you're doing something inappropriate, and, we do the same thing. Like when we hire, we look at people's social media, like who you follow, what are you interested in? Cause that could be problematic.
It shows patterns. Yeah. And it's really when parents start, I've had a full spectrum, parents that aren't aware of what their students are utilizing online on their devices. And I've had other parents that are, nope, absolutely. They don't use the device outside of me being able to sit next to them and watch them do it. And there's no right or wrong way. That's an individual decision for you and your families. What I encourage families to understand is just be aware of what is platforms are out there or what context. If I have a brand new iPhone, I have iMessages on there. If a parent says to me, "Well, I review my students' messages." Okay, great. Look in their iMessage. Did you look in the WhatsApp? Did you look in the gaming chat on Bejeweled, right? So there's all these other avenues. And if you don't know what those apps look like, the little icon in the app store on their phone, they can be hid away. I have a bunch of folders on my phone for different categories. All the online shopping apps in there, in one shopping application. I have a health folder. All these different folders, it's easy to hide a communication app in there that you'll never know about. And maybe they're texting grandma and having wonderful, productive conversations in iMessage, but there's other things going on in those other platforms that if you're not aware or understand the capabilities on surface level, it looks like my student's utilizing the device properly. On the other side, maybe it's not being. And that's not to say that those students are bullying, but maybe they've gotten themselves into a conversation and said something or done something in that conversation that is now opening them up to an individual pushing for more. When we talk about our vulnerable students sharing images of themselves, it starts off in these social media these gaming platforms where, hey, oh, I met this person, we've been gaming, we teamed up, and to further ourselves along. I always use Bejeweled as an example because I'm old and that's the game I like. But that's one of the first platforms that came out with this team communication style thing. Well, hey, you know what? This app's really clunky. Let's move into a Discord chat, and here's my link, and we can just talk directly in there while we still play the game. Well, now we're having a conversation in a different platform. And maybe there we start building a friendship that really they're being groomed through that process. And then one thing leads to another, maybe innocent photos sent, and now it switches, right? And it turns into, well, you sent me this photo, you need to send me more, otherwise I'm going to tell your parents what you're doing. And now they've gone into this cycle that they can't get out of, or they're scared to get out of, or really they don't know how to get out of. And that's where, going back to that original question about recognizing if something seems different or the behavior seems different, something's going on. And having that open communication with your student is the best way to address those issues.
Yeah, it's anonymity is so terrifying, right? You know, when you talk to kids, they'll go out and say like, hey, I always ask like, how many of you have a public Instagram account? Half hands go up. And I always say the first thing is, if you get anything out of my presentation today, make your account private. You have no idea who you're talking to. And I think about that when those grooming incidents have occurred and continue to occur. Like, it's that it can totally pretend to be somebody else online and you have no idea it's this 50-year-old man. You think it's a junior hire. It's terrifying, like, to think about how quick that can happen, how easy that is to do. And if kids don't understand that, and it's to me, it's about having those conversations continually with kids and really getting them to understand. So it's not just to like, this is bad, this is dangerous, be careful, but really talking through like what they use, why they use it, who are they on. And I always think every presentation I'll yell out to kids, whatever grade level, 4th grade to high school, I'll say, what do parents say to their kids? Never talk to, and they all yell stranger, right? And I'm like, it's the same online. It's the same exact thing. It's actually worse because they have more access to you, you know, at all times of the day. But it's just interesting that we every kid knows that. So that's been said to them. I mean, every kid, like, it's bizarre how like across culture, across age, across generations. And then it's like, now we need to add like, and online. Like,
well, it's that. And it's even to further that, parents have conversations about drugs, alcohol, things that they shouldn't be doing, or things that are dangerous to their students' health. But we stop that line at social media. And I'm a huge advocate for having those conversations the same way you would tell your kids that smoking cigarettes is not good for their health. We should be having that same conversation about social media.
Yep.
And I think the biggest hurdle with that is because we utilize it ourselves, right? We're addicted to that process as well, whether we realize it or not. That social media interaction and that constant need of affirmation of, hey, 30 seconds and I get 20 likes on my post. We're constantly seeking out that affirmation, that it's become a drug for us. And we are at the point now where we need to treat it and talk about it the same way we do other illicit drugs or other dangerous, non-healthy items.
yeah, it's that back and forth, right? It's so integrated into our lives and part of everything that we do across technology. I mean, even we're talking about like we're having, you know, we can use YouTube in schools instructionally, but then at the same time, that platform could be problematic, but we're so used to it. It's become the norm. And so those things, it's like this constant like back and forth of like, what's their night? That's interesting when you see that, like really adding it into almost like the DARE program, like back in the day, like really adding, this is another risk factor. And you know, I think it's so important for us to make sure our parents especially know this so that they're aware, like, I need to get on this. And there's so many resources out there, like commonsensemedia.org. We have our phone policy website. There's lots of stuff out there to talk about this, but I think it can feel so daunting. I mean, with all the apps and everything going on, I think that, to me, where do you start sometimes is the hardest part. So if you could give one piece of advice to students and families about staying safe online that we haven't really talked about, what, you know, or to leave families with anything, what's something that you would want to make sure, as, you know, the person that is responsible to oversee safety for this massive system, what's your advice to parents?
The biggest advice I have is just communicate. That addressing the issues or addressing some of the problems start with, one, communicating with your student, but communication's two ways, and being open for your student to come to you and express concerns. And if we can create that open communication, that open dialogue, we can start to adjust that shift. And that communication involves modeling behavior, right? If we're expecting our students, and you have a rule in your house that says you can't be on your device in the living room or in your personal space, it needs to be in a family area, no devices at the dinner table, whatever it is that you want to explore, model that yourself. I found oftentimes in my own house that, I have my personal phone, I have my work phone, and they're both always on me. And it's something where I just pull it out and check. It's, my kids are eating dinner and I pull it out. They're engaged with their mom and they're having that conversation and I'm not a part of it. And oh, let me check my phone. Oh, that phantom vibrating that we've all felt. Oh, is that my work phone? Is that an email? And so we've been proactively like, our devices stay out here. If that means I have to turn the ringer up on my phone so I can hear my work phone ringing from far away, great. But if that's free and that's away, then I'm breaking that bond that we have. And you only get there by having that communication in your house. So communicating and modeling that behavior. So what we're doing, what we're asking our students to do, we should be willing to do ourselves. Because then otherwise it just becomes do as I say, not as I do. And at least in my upbringing, that didn't work out so well.
Right.
So
and that reminds me of like that's the same thing, like all the monitoring apps that are out there, which are amazing, right? I mean, I've had some parents school me on like, I use this app and it's great because I can track keywords my kids are searching, everything. And I have this list from Common Sense Media Org. It gives you all a breakdown of all of those different apps and the pros and cons. And I provide it as a resource, but I always say to parents too, just what you said, that I'm like, you've got to be having these conversations though. If you just go draconian, go now it's a surveillance state and I can watch everything you do, that's where you want to go. That's fine. But make sure you're having a dialogue with your kid, because if you don't, they're going to get a burner phone, or they're going to, there's all kinds of tricks around that, and kids are really smart and they go down that. And you're right. I had this situation where, because like you, I have a work phone and I have a personal phone, and that for one was one of the best things I did, because I'm able to more separate my work from my life. But I've caught myself in that moment of like checking, but you go from checking the text to then popping an Instagram real quick or doing something else, because it's designed to keep you on it. It calls to you. And I think about that one time my daughter looked up at me and she's like talking to me and I'm like one word answering her because I'm stuck on my phone. And she turns, she goes, "Can you just put that away and talk to me?" And she's look at it, and I was like, and I'm tearing up as a dad. I'm like, God, I feel so bad. And I put it away. And it was one of the times that was a big reminder to really set those boundaries and thinking like, if I'm giving that screen all of my attention, what is that saying to her? That whatever's in that screen is more important than her attention. And then over time, not only does that hurt our relationship, but then she's going to go, that must be pretty dang amazing what's in that phone, because even subconsciously. And so, well, thank you so much for sitting down. Anything else you want to plug, or you want to leave anything for the community that's listening?
Really, just like I said, communication is huge, and seeing something, saying something. That's where we address the problem. Again, we don't know what's going on if we don't know about it. And so by reporting it, any avenue that you have, we have great partnerships with our schools. We have great partnerships with local law enforcement. Reporting it somewhere gets everyone involved. And at that point, we can start looking to address what that concern is. So,
all right. Well, thanks, Cameron.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Reimagine podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation today. If you'd like to learn more about safety, both online and offline in LBUSD, visit lbschools.net/safety. And if you're on Instagram, make sure to follow at LBUSD Safety for helpful info from our school safety office. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss future episodes. And please share with friends, colleagues, or anyone who cares about helping students navigate the digital world safely. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Reimagine podcast.